Hello everyone, well I think we've got something special today to have a look at. This is a very old model from Rivarossi and it says on the box it's an LE424-R. So you can see that the box has been around quite a bit and it's had a few bashes. Let's have a look inside, see what we've got here. Okay, so what we've got in here is a very old model, as you can see, also very heavy. So you can see straight away that this is a very old model and it's also very dirty. I think it's been in storage for some time, so I'm just going to give this a clean. As usual, I use this makeup brush for that. So the first thing obviously is the weight of this model. It's very heavy and it's also quite crude by today's standards, but I'm wondering how long ago this model was actually made. It might be quite a vintage item. It has a few problems going on with it, not least of which is one of these screws that keeps falling out at the bottom here, so I'm not quite sure what the problem is there. I think we probably need to take this apart before even running it, just to make sure everything's okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, to start taking this model apart, I think we need to start here with these screws. I've never done this before, so I'm just going to have to see how we get along with it. So taking that part off didn't help at all. Okay, so I'm going to try and take the bogies off by taking these screws off. Okay, so now with the sides of the bogies off, I can see that there are 4 screws here which I think hold the top on, so I'm going to go ahead and take those off as well. Okay, so now I've separated the 2 parts and all the glazing has fallen out, which is these parts over here. I think these are just really old and the glue has perished on them. I might actually replace these, so let's see if we can get the other windows out and then I'll just do a whole placement job. Okay, so on the underside of the body I can see that there are wires going from here and here, and that corresponds to the pantographs as well, so this looks as though it can pick up from overhead power as well as from the track. That's quite a nice thing to see. And this lever here, which sticks up through the top of the body, changes from one to the other. So I'm just going to try and undo these nuts and remove the screws so that we can take these 2 pieces apart. So I'm going to carefully hold the nut and see if I can just revolve it. That's loosened it. Okay, so I've got the body completely off the chassis now. So now with the body off the chassis, you can see the electrics inside this. The weight here is just free moving as well. I'm a bit concerned about that, so I think what I'll do is I'll attach the bottom part back on, which holds the weight to the chassis. So I'm just going to do that just now. Okay, so that's a bit better now, the weight isn't floating about. At this end of the weight there's a mechanism which sticks up through the roof of the locomotive and you can move this slider from left to right. So that'll let you collect power from overhead or from the wheels depending on whether it's left or right. At this end of the locomotive you can see the motor inside here and it drives the front wheels, and it looks like the pickup it comes from the back wheels here, and it has a light as well, which is quite a nice touch. And you can see how the bogie moves left and right here on this little track, and it's held on with this nut here. I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit. And it doesn't look too bad in terms of the wheels, they look pretty clean. So I'm going to give this a go and see if it actually works. I'm just going to hot wire it from my H&M controller, so I'll just set that up. So I've got some power now on these cables. I'm just going to prod on the top of the motor and see what happens. Well, that's good to know that it's still working after all this time. Okay, I've just set up a little bit of a test track to see if this will work. I'm just going to give it some power. Well, that's working not too bad considering how old this is, and I haven't given it any clean or anything, so that's quite good. That's fantastic news. I'm going to have to put it back together now though, but before I do that I just wanted to point out that it looks like this has had some araldite added to it to fix in the windows that were which all fell out at the start, and this has got really dry now. To put in new glazing into this I'd have to scrape all this out and refit some windows. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to put this model back together. Also, I noticed as well that this has sprung buffers, so that's quite interesting because, you know, you kind of think this is a new modern thing that they put on model railways, but this ancient old thing here has these sprung buffers as well. But it has got one missing at this end, which is a bit of a shame. I don't think I'll ever be able to find one that'll fit into here. I love the crudeness of the graphics on this 424001. I think it's a transfer, but it almost looks as though it's hand painted on. So let's see if we can try and get this back together. The first thing to notice is that this handle here to switch between pick up from the rails or overhead needs to marry up with a slot on the top of the locomotive here. So this end here is where this wire goes, and it's going to go up into this area here. So this is going to be quite tricky. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this, so let's see how we get on. Okay, so we've got one on, now we need to get this other cable over to the other pantograph on the other side. So I've got the body wired into the chassis now. I think I can put these two parts together. I don't think I've forgotten any bits. So we do have a problem with this bolt. It doesn't seem to be catching on a thread inside the body. So I'm thinking it's maybe been threaded at some point. So I'm just going to put it to one side at the moment. So this one also seems to have some problems. Okay, so it seems like we've got two screws left, and what I think has happened here is it's in the past somebody's fitted these screws back in and over tightened them and threaded the thread inside the locomotive. So these aren't actually catching, which is a real shame. But that said, the model is together, it's not going to come out. So I think we're okay with just two. So I'll put these to the side and we can continue on. Now, I wouldn't normally do this with a modern locomotive because I'm going to rest it on these pantographs, but this one is made so solidly that I think it'll be fine. We just need to get the sides of the bogies on. So they're two-part metal and they fit on the side here. Okay, so that took a bit longer than I thought. We have ended up with these two extra screws that just won't go into the holes. I'm going to have to sort that out later, and obviously the glazing hasn't been fixed at all. But then again, I don't think it had glazing from the factory. So it's together now. Let's see if we can get this onto the test track and see if it still runs. So it's very noisy, but it actually runs quite smoothly, and I'm quite impressed with it considering how old it is and the crude mechanism. So this model fought me a little bit today. I suppose it is a bit of a grumpy old thing. I managed to get there in the end and it's running quite smoothly. So let's see how much this weighs. So this model is very heavy, it's 706 grams. Okay, so overall this is quite a crude model by today's standards, but that's not really the point in this. It's got a retro charm to it and it looks quite cool. It's amazing that it still runs so well. Okay, it's a bit noisy. It does actually run quite smoothly. And it has the option to run with overhead wires as well. It's switchable between the two. At some point I'm going to refit the glazing. It's certainly a cool model, and if you can find one of these and you're into retro old model railways, then I think it would be a nice addition. It's certainly very quirky. And look what I just found in the bottom of the box. Brilliant. I'm going to put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around it, but for the time being, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe for more videos like this in the future. But for now, that's it for today, so I'll see you later.